Yet another shocking story emerges of a bombshell student-teacher relationship. This time, it's a California middle school teacher who also happens to be a married mother of two who's accused of having a sexual relationship with a former student. These allegations came to light only after an investigation into sexually explicit photos of the teacher that were circulating around with students.
Feels like we're seeing more. We don't have data on it yet. It takes a while for the Justice Department to collect data to know what's going on. But it certainly feels like this is happening more and more. Um, and part of that could be a good sign that these cases are being taken more seriously and that schools are acting when they learn about it.
Scott Berkowitz, the CEO of the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, or RAIN for short, says the stereotype of male teachers preying upon students is outdated. While it's still occurring, there are also females abusing their positions of power.
I think certainly male perpetrator and young girl is the sort of stereotype that's gotten all the attention over the years. I think female perpetrator happens a lot more than we all know. So bringing attention to this recent spate of cases, I think, is really important.
The case we're focusing on today is that of Michelle Solis, a middle school teacher in Gridley, California, about an hour north of Sacramento. She's been a teacher in the Gridley Unified School District for at least 20 years. Solis is very active on her social media pages, posting about her husband, a fellow teacher, and their two children. In the past, she's put out multiple posts about her passion for teaching, using the hashtag #ILoveMyJob, or writing, quote, "I love my job, loved seeing my past students be so successful and cheer on my present." It's one of those past students that Solis is now accused of having a sexual relationship with. It all started on October 10th when the Gridley Police Department received a tip from a concerned parent about explicit photos of a teacher being passed around between students. That investigation led them to Solis, who authorities say had a sexual relationship with a student. Some of the explicit content was later found on the victim's phone. Berkowitz says grooming was likely at play in this case.
Grooming is a process of getting close to the child. It's befriending them. It usually takes place with a trusted adult, someone who legitimately has access to the kid, and that can be a teacher, that can be a coach, that can be a doctor, but somebody who has a natural reason to be near the child and to start a relationship. And it's, you know, there's people the people who do this tend to do it over and over, and to find victim after victim. So they get very good at grooming. They know the things to say. They know they engage conversations in things that the kid is likely to be interested in. That are age appropriate for the kid and not age appropriate for the teacher.
Through grooming, Berkowitz says Solis may have used coercion. I'm wondering, is it possible that the student themselves might be too shy, or even that they've been coerced to remain silent, and that's why oftentimes it's the parents who report this?
Absolutely, parents are key here. There's all kinds of psychological tricks that a perpetrator will use on a child when they're grooming them or trying to start something that will lead to sexual abuse. Um, there can be coercion, there can be threats, there can be um, uh, manipulation to make the child feel like this is consensual and that they have the ability to consent. So there's so many ways to influence a child and discourage them from coming forward. That parents are crucial, friends are crucial, guidance counselors, anybody who might see something that feels a little off.
He also says it's possible Solis has committed a crime of this nature in the past.
Yeah, it definitely happens a lot that a perpetrator has a preference for a certain age range, certain gender, and so they look for new victims, and that's particularly a risk in schools where every year the teacher has a whole new class of kids who could be vulnerable.
Berkowitz says the survivor will likely face inaccurate stereotypes that he asked for the abuse.
There's definitely a stereotype out there that some boys want this, and there's a couple issues there. One is just age. Under a certain age, they can't legally consent to any sexual activity. Um, uh, Power and coercion is another factor when it's a teacher who has control over their grades, who has influence over their future. Um, that it's to the point where it can't be really voluntary. Um, there's also, I think, sometimes boys think that they're supposed to want this, that they're supposed to uh, pursue opportunities like this with with someone older, and so there's some sort of subtle pressure there that pushes them towards seemingly agreeing to start a relationship like this.
Damaging stereotypes like these are what Berkowitz says causes many survivors to remain silent.
Most sexual assault victims of any gender don't come forward and don't report what happened to them. But there's some extra things that make it harder for many boys to come forward. It's not wanting to be seen as vulnerable or not wanting to be seen as having a problem with sexual activity. Sometimes they are, sometimes their physical reaction to an encounter um, makes them wonder about their own sexual orientation. Um, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of social pressures that make it difficult for boys to come forward. But we consistently see in every study, and we see on the National Sexual Assault Hotline that there are millions of boys in this country that have been sexually abused.
But when someone does come forward to report sexual abuse, there are ways to deal with it.
The first thing to know is nearly every survivor in some way blames themselves initially for something, for doing something, for not doing something that led to the assault. So the most important thing friends and family can do is make sure that they understand that it's not their fault in any way. That this was something a perpetrator, a bad person, decided to do to harm them. Um, Another thing friends and family can do are really um, don't overwhelm the kid with questions. Don't try and draw out every single detail right away. Give them a chance to talk. Give them a chance to tell you what they want and to share details in pieces as they come. They've just gone through a significant trauma. It's not easy to talk about, and so being sensitive to that will ultimately make you someone that they feel like they can count on.
Ahead of that, Berkowitz says there's a laundry list of warning signs to keep an eye out for.
I think an adult who is looking to spend an inordinate amount of time with your child, um, who's inviting them to things, looking for ways to have one-on-one time that seems out of the ordinary. There's a limited amount of one-on-one time a teacher and student might have, um, but it very quickly crosses a line when they're getting together outside of school, or if they're exchanging text messages at night. So just really being alert to where your kid is, who they're texting with, um, uh, and stepping in and making sure that they know that they can talk to you about something that's happening, and that you're not going to blame them is a really good way for parents to help.
So Lisa's case is not the first of its kind and not even the first we've covered here on Law&Crime Network. We told you about Alyssa McCommon, the teacher out of Tennessee, accused of raping a 13-year-old boy in her own home. Prosecutors say she's now pregnant with the boy's child. Then there's Cassidy Krause, a teacher out of Iowa. She's accused of having sexual relations with at least 3 students. We also covered the story of Ricky Lynn Laughlin, a Missouri teacher now charged with attempted rape after she invited a young boy to have sex with her when her husband was out. In Arkansas, former University of Arkansas employee Stephanie Niepling just received 6 years of probation after admitting she had sex with a 15-year-old boy. There's also the story of Peyton Shires, a newly credentialed social worker accused of sexually abusing a 13-year-old boy she was assigned to counsel. When investigators searched the boy's phone, they found videos of him and Shires having sex. She later allegedly threatened to kill both the 13-year-old boy and his mom when she brought a gun to their home. Since we first reported on that case, news broke that Shires' fiancé, 27-year-old Nicholas Rafter, had previously been behind bars for nearly 5 years on charges of child endangerment after allegedly drugging and assaulting a 14-year-old girl when he was 19. A common thread throughout all of these cases is that the perpetrator is in a committed relationship and often has children. If we're looking at this story in particular, Michelle Solis is the defendant in the case, a teacher. She's been a teacher for 20 years in this specific district. What's interesting to me is it's similar to other cases I've covered where the defendant is married and has children. That is shocking to me. They're married, they're already in a relationship, have kids that may be around the same age as the victim or survivor in this case. What would lead this person or all of the others to step out of their marriage and have relationships with somebody who's a student?
You know, I can't speak much to the psychology of the perpetrator. That's not my expertise, but I we certainly see all the time that um, that, that perpetrators have been engaging in this behavior for years, and they get bolder and bolder and more confident in doing so because they don't get caught, or if they get caught, nothing happens to them. Perpetrator of any age, any gender, um, any marital status, this is probably something they started years ago, and just kept doing it because they got away with it.
As we look ahead to prevention, Berkowitz says there are steps a parent can take to protect their children.
Parents certainly can be careful about who they're letting their kids spend time with. They can make sure that when they are spending time with an adult outside the immediate family, that there are other people present, so sort of chaperones at all times, um, and reducing the number of situations that the child is in where a perpetrator could have um, access one-on-one to commit an assault. Um, I think that's a big key step that parents can do.
In the end, he reminds survivors of sexual assault they are not alone.
Just want to share the National Sexual Assault Hotline, which is free, confidential, available 24 hours a day. About half the people who come to us on the hotline are kids. So we're very prepared and able to help you out no matter what your age. You can get help at 800-656-HOPE or online at rainn.org.
As for Michelle Solis, she was taken into custody on Monday. She's since been booked into the Butte County Jail and faces a charge of unlawful sexual intercourse with a minor under the age of 16. Right now, the investigation into Michelle Solis' conduct is still underway, and officials ask anyone with more information or additional victims to come forward. Reporting for Law&Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.